Hey guys, and welcome to the Red Shirt Report, the official show of StackUp.org. My name is Chris, the Game Case, aka Cuddles Case, and with me here tonight is my wonderful co-host.
My name is Chris Clue Miller, and the first thing I think we'd like to talk about today is going over some of the recap from the StackUp boardroom meeting. For those of you who are unable or don't know about the boardroom meeting, it occurs every Wednesday afternoon, evening at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tonight, the first thing is up. For those of you who don't know, Fortnite has a new, I guess I don't know if you'd call it a beta, but it's a game that's separate from Fortnite called Battle Royale. Our Red Shirt Raiders will be playing that tonight. It is free and separate from Fortnite itself. But essentially, it allows you in a sort of PUBG-esque style arena combat, but in the Fortnite universe, where there's building, there's a lot of other interesting things that go on with that. Very cool, very fun. So the Red Shirt Raiders are out there playing that at this moment. So go grab that up if you can and join them.
Yeah, and guys, I wanted to throw this in here. I had a chance to play this game before it released publicly, when it was in Founders Alpha. The front end of Fortnite is a whole lot of fun. Their survival mode, but their battle royale, if you're a PUBG player, so much fun, so cool, such a nice, kind of the same game, but being totally different. It's very cartoony, and the addition of being able to build things adds an entirely new element to it. So go check that out, Red Shirt Raiders. But for my part of the meeting, guys, 44 days until Call to Arms. It's 44 days until November 11th, till our big fundraising push. We run Call to Arms all year long, but we have two big events, one around Memorial Day, one around Veterans Day. If you're a streamer or know someone who is, I want to talk to them. I'd like to get their help. I'd love to have your assistance during this time. Sign up today. We have a wonderful link that I will be dropping in chat for everything that you need to know about Call to Arms, or just reach out to me. You can find me in all the places. You can find me in the Discords. You can find me on the Twitter. I would love to talk to anyone and everyone on the interwebs about this. But Clue, I think you got something, not about us fundraising, but something about us actually doing our mission. You care to share that with us?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to. We had an air assault at San Diego Comic-Con this year, 2017, and his name was Tyler. And Tyler was a fellow who lost both of his legs, one of his arms, and the vast majority of his hand. And this happened from an IED blast while he was in the military. He was deployed overseas. One of the things that he really enjoyed doing, but he can't anymore, is gaming. Particularly because he just doesn't have the appendages. I mean, he has some fingers, but his arm is gone, and it's very difficult for him to manipulate a joystick or a controller. Or using a keyboard. So it's a part of his life that was cut off for him because of the seriousness of his injuries. Recently, StackUp.org teamed up with Warfighter Engaged to provide him with a custom-made controller. This allows him to use the appendages that he still has. He has a portion of one of his arm and 3 fingers on his other hand, but they built this rig for him and little paddles for his legs, or where his knees were. And so this rig was built specifically for him so that he could continue to play games. For those of you who don't know, Warfighter Engaged, that is their mission. They specifically build custom gaming rigs and gaming controllers for disabled and wounded vets who just don't have the physical ability to manipulate controllers. It's something that a lot of us take for granted every day. And these heroes, this is the thing that they love. They love gaming, and to have something that you love stripped away from you and not able to do that anymore, but then being given back to you, the guys over at Warfighter Engaged, I mean, I just can't give them enough respect and enough gratitude for the things that they do. If you'd like to take a look at that yourself, we have a video on StackUp.org's YouTube page. So you can check it out. There's a link down either in the chat or down on the Twitch page here. Please, by all means, go take a look at it. And Tyler has an incredible story, and Warfighter Engaged was there for him.
Oh yeah, and I think if you saw our video from our air assaults from San Diego, you definitely saw Tyler. He told a little bit about his story, and one of the things that really hit me about it was the number was 7 years since his accident, or it was 7 years since he had been able to play video games. And go check out that video, because if you want to see a happy guy and just a pure moment of joy. The first few minutes of Tyler being able to finally game again, it's so incredible to be a part of this organization. Being able to partner up with Warfighter Engaged was incredible. So definitely check that out. Our first matter of the day, though, we're returning to our Ask a Vet segment, which was very popular. Last time we asked a little bit about veteran style apparel. We touched on whether or not I had a specific question about a grunt style shirt that I really liked. And you guys came through, answered over on our Twitter, answered here in chat. So we have a new question. And that one is going to be, should a civilian salute? Now, this one comes actually from myself. You guys can feel free to submit your Ask-A-Vets. For those that don't know and haven't heard this, I am a civilian. Clue is a veteran. And my question was, am I allowed to salute? I use it on my personal Twitch channel when I welcome somebody into my community called the Cuddle Crew. We play a lot of a game called Elite Dangerous, which is a space sim where you're a captain in space. So someone's joining the crew, and so I will toss them a salute. Oftentimes at the end of this show, I will offer up a salute to those that have been watching. Is that okay? Is it not? Clue, first off, your thoughts.
First of all, let me put a caveat in there, and we probably should say this every time we get on the air, is that these are our opinions. A lot of the commentary that we have are, again, our own, and it doesn't necessarily reflect Stack Up's position or their opinion. Now, with that out of the way, my opinion is it's situationally dependent. Just as a little background for myself, I was active duty infantry, U.S. Army for 4 years. Served in several interesting places around the world. But for me personally, I think it's situationally dependent. For instance, when your thing with the saluting of the people coming on and following the Cuddle Crew, I don't think there's any problem with that at all. In general, though, I don't think it's appropriate. One place that is absolutely not appropriate is, and I know there's been a lot of controversy about this in the news lately, and I'm not going to get up on any soapboxes about that, but is during the national anthem. Typically, you'll cover your heart. Veterans, and I have seen veterans and I've seen active duty military actually offer the salute. But generally speaking, anytime you're trying to pay respect, it would be probably more appropriate to put your hand over your heart. Now, if you're doing like if there's a parade and there's some vets, maybe it's some World War II vets or something like that are walking down the street or as part of the parade, and you want to salute them, I think that's okay, because you're trying to give them respect. You're not, trying to take anything away, but that is a universal sign of respect among the military. And so trying to convey that as a civilian, I don't think it's a wrong thing to do. But I do think you have to be careful when you do that. So I don't know if that like opens up more questions or if that answers the question concisely enough. But yeah.
No, and I think for my part, I entirely agree on the situationally appropriateness. There are times where I definitely would not salute. For example, meeting some of our soldiers at some of our veterans at an event, I wouldn't walk up to one of them, click my heels, and salute at them.
Right.
I wouldn't to a uniformed soldier. I would not do that.
Right.
But there are times like the end of the show, toss in a salute. This is where we want your opinion, guys. Is it situationally okay, or is it always wrong? What do you guys think? We want to ask the community. We'll be throwing that up on Twitter. Everybody in chat is more than welcome to answer. There is a link to the straw poll in chat, but we want your opinion. So with that said, Clue, I think you got something else for us to talk about.
I do indeed. And this has to do with something that I think is kind of, I don't want to say near and dear to our hearts, but it's certainly something that affects us all as gamers. And that has to do with piracy. Now, the adage is the piracy is not a victimless crime, and that is an absolute truth. However, it may not be as victimizing as we were once thought. In 2010, estimates were the rough estimates in terms of the amount of damage that specifically video game piracy was responsible for was somewhere in the neighborhood of $51 billion annually. And that's worldwide. In addition to almost 500,000 jobs that were lost just due to video game piracy. Again, that's worldwide. That was a 2010 study. Recently, however, the European Commission conducted another study on this exact topic. And they found that it doesn't seem to be quite as drastic an impact on the gaming space as once projected. According to their study, for every 100 games that were downloaded illegally, 25 more games were purchased or acquired. There's also a new free-to-play games were actually acquired. Now, the caveat to the study is that the margin of error for the study is like 45%. So it can't be written in stone, right? That's a pretty wide margin of error. However, it does seem as though a lot of the evidence, the current evidence, but based on the questioning and the studies and the data and the analytics that were conducted in this survey, tend to move that needle back a little bit. Now, some of the things that so there was a 306-page report that the European Commission conducted and published about this topic. They also did. So how did they figure this stuff out? So there were 30,000 people that were polled and questioned. And some of the questions included things like, are you aware of some of the vernacular with regards to the piracy, with piracy? Yes, no. If so, did you ever pirate? And if not, or if you did you ever report it? Right. So they're kind of strange questions, but they're also leading questions in the sense that if somebody knows, or if somebody says, yeah, I know what freaking is, or I know what, certain particular piracy terms are, and then they gave a negative response with regards to some of the particular questions that were asked them, then they could kind of discern based on that knowledge that was an incorrect or an untruthful answer. So there's a little bit of pseudoscience going on with this as well. But they also, again, they were just straight up questionnaires as well. Like, did you ever do this? Yes, no. There were also other economic models applied to this study outside of just the 30,000 people that were questioned. But so it's a very interesting report. My thought was always that I mean, and piracy is never good, right? I mean, but I've done it. I don't, I'm willing to admit that I've copied games. I used to bootleg. I had my old Commodore 64, and games were like all over the place, and it was wrong. And I don't do it now, but when I was young and more foolish than I am now, I would do these sorts of things. But it is interesting whether or not the hype is real, right, Cuddles? And just in terms of the amount of overall damage that's caused by piracy. Not to downplay its effects, but it isn't like every time you pirate a game, a puppy dies.
I hope not, because I'll admit to it too. In my younger days, I would definitely. I had a large library of music that I was like, oh wow, you pay for music? Why? Look, LimeWire. And the terms Napster and LimeWire will probably date when these things actually happened. But the reality of it is, I never really bought into the hype of it being, every time somebody pirates a game, a dev loses his job. Like, no, that's simply not true. Which is not to encourage it, much like Clue said. But I think this is a case of an industry really making, I don't want to say a mountain out of a molehill, but a mountain out of a possibly largely smaller mountain than it was. Maybe a really big hill. In all reality, the only things that I will download now are things that I can't legally find available somewhere. For example, very, very old games or niche games or something that simply isn't purchasable anymore. And those games are out there. Now, I definitely could see how it would actually help. So say I pirate a game and then I'm like, Clue, you got to play this game. You're not into pirating games. And, you go and buy the game. There's a sale that they wouldn't have gotten. I love that they really dug into this. And I'm encouraged to see places doing studies like this and really digging into some of our industries, like larger issues.
Right. It's interesting too. So this study didn't just focus on video games, although the 2010 study, I believe, was just specifically focused on video games. This study kind of was a little bit more broad in the sense that they also studied the effect on things like film, books, and music. And what they found was that piracy was more damaging than previously thought for the film industry and for books. And I imagine that, books is kind of a new area because, back when, maybe when we were doing kind of bad things with Napster and like file sharing sites and stuff like that, which was really kind of the gray area, I think, with regards to piracy, as it were. They didn't have like ebooks, like Kindles weren't around and they didn't have like Audible. And they did, but they were on tape. Right, like cassette tapes. So that's different. That's kind of a different metric, and I think it's a new metric. But they did find that movies still suffer pretty heavily with regards to piracy. But music actually was kind of more neutral. Like it didn't. This study found that it wasn't projected to be any worse, but it wasn't projected to be any better either. So it's kind of a weird, and I wonder to what extent that there's something in there. Like, why are video games? Why is piracy less damaging to video games than it is for film? And there's a lesson in there somewhere.
Well, I think for video games, specifically, pirated games are much more likely to be buggy, have problems, things of that nature. So it's very likely that you purchase that you download the pirated, buggy, hacked together version of a game, love it, and then go and play it, or go tell your friends about it, versus where you download a book. It's a book. You read it, you're done with it. You delete it, it's done.
Or you download, or you torrent one of those those videos, where those people have the little handy cam and they're holding it in front of them. Yeah. And, the guy's head moves in front of you, right? And
if you're okay with watching a movie like that, you're not buying the Blu-ray special edition. You're not doing it. You're okay with Handycam, dude. I think video games are a vastly unique medium, and I think this is yet another way that we're kind of showing our difference in the new media era.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Now, full disclosure. Now, I didn't personally, because I don't use torrent, because my experience with those sorts of file sharing sites is that there's lots of viruses, right? There's lots of malware. They're pretty dangerous sites, not to mention sketchy, and gosh, they're kind of illegal too. However, I did have someone that was close to me had the one of the Star Wars, not Rogue One, but the Force Awakens, and we watched that on torrent, and it was exactly that. It was kind of grainy, and the dude's head's walking in front, right? And or the two people are kind of like this, and you're kind of looking between their shoulders. But I went out because being the Star Wars fan that I am, I was like, I don't want to see this crap. I want to actually see the movie in all of its glory. And I actually did buy, and this is karma for you, because I went online to buy it on Amazon Movies, right? And it wouldn't play on my TV, and so I actually bought that freaking movie 4 times. So anyway, there's karma for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, did you have something else, Carlos?
No. I was going to say, moving forward, we're going to talk a little bit about the rise of retro gaming. Now, there was a study in Mental Floss that dug a little bit into kind of the rise of things that we're seeing right now, like the NES, the NES Classic with 30 preloaded games, the Super Nintendo. I know I'm actually in a Discord with about 20 other internet dwellers, shall I call them. That was the hot button topic of today, was where can we go find an SNES Classic? We're seeing a resurgence in retro games, and everybody, one of the things that I wanted to pull out of this article is everyone's like, oh, now retro games are coming back. In 1983, actually, this was one of the cooler things in this article that, at least to me, was ColecoVision decided to manufacture an add-on module to their ColecoVision video game system that ran Atari 2600 games. Now, of course, Atari was upset and sued Coleco for $350 million and won. But this retro gaming has always been a thing. And so hardware patents only last 20 years from the date of application. You could rebuild the actual tech, but the games and the IPs don't age out that soon. So that's why we're able to see things like different branded, non-Nintendo branded NESs and now SNESs coming out. And Nintendo, to combat that, is coming out with their classic consoles. I think it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense because, as mentioned in the article, we're all so for the kids that grew up on Nintendo and Super Nintendo, we're now all approaching our mid 20s to mid 30s. We're presumably financially stable, or at least more so than we were in our teens or younger years. And this is something that we see happen every generation. Kind of 10 years ago, it was 80s stuff all coming back. Now we're seeing 90s stuff all coming back because now we have money. We get nostalgic for our childhood, and we actually have the money that people can. We can go out and purchase these things. They can sell an SNES Classic for $70, and it's nothing to go pick it up, right? So what do you think? Are you excited about Do you have a Nintendo Classic? Are you going to be picking up an SNES Classic? How are you feeling about this kind of resurgence of video games?
I think I'm excited for it. I'll be honest with you. I had the old Sega systems and the Nintendos, the old Nintendo Classic, or the big gray box. And I've seen a lot of that. As a matter of fact, we had an article. We did an interview with some folks that actually publish games. This is maybe a little bit off topic, but they publish games for Retrotainment, I think was their name. And we did a thing on our YouTube channel again, where they still make games for cartridges for regular Nintendo. But one of the things that I enjoy this kind of stuff because, again, you're absolutely right in the sense that it does harken back to your childhood, and a lot of the things that we grew up on, they don't age for us. You know what I mean? Like they're timeless for us. So while GoldenEye is going to be timeless for somebody else, for me, Combat was timeless. I mean, from the old Atari 2600 days, I loved playing Combat. I loved the little tank battle where shots ricochet, and you have to kind of be real careful with how you're shooting and stuff like that. Pitfall was a great classic that I loved. So we date ourselves, but I think those things are important to us as gamers, right? They're like identity for fingerprints for us, and we can kind of almost identify ourselves by like the era of the games that we played when we were growing up, right? So I think it's cool. I think it's really great. There are actually certain retail chains that when I was in Texas, there was a place in Texas that actually, it's a chain, and they sell like old Nintendos and Super NESs and Segas and 3DSs and Atari 2600s and games like that was their thing. They're all about retro, and I think they make a pretty decent living at it. I remember this controller. It was like, remember the old, for those of you who are old enough, the old joystick, right? And you probably have seen icons of it, where it's just a stick with one button, right? It's a giant stick.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen them. They had one of those, and it had little RCA connectors for audio and video. And like every Atari 2600 game like ever made was on this. It was like inside this thing, and you could play it like on your TV. And that was awesome, right? And I've seen like other like variations of that theme. So it makes a certain amount of sense that that going back in time isn't a bad thing. We always kind of want to harken back to the things that we grew up with. They're nostalgic. They're as much as anything else is, I think.
All right, and I will end this with one final thought from the article. It's actually the last couple of sentences, and I'll paraphrase here. It plays on your psyche. It takes you back to a time where you could play games for hours on end, no bills and no responsibilities, and I think that's just a perfect description of what we're describing as nostalgia. It does. Sitting down with Mario or Tecmo Bowl or GoldenEye or whatever it was for you, sitting down with that game just takes us back to our childhood, and that can't be a bad thing.
And we're old enough now, we don't have anybody poking us saying, "Get off that computer!" That was me. And with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up for this episode of the Red Shirt Report. Thank you all very much for joining us. Now, one of the things we'd like you to do, go check out the results, and don't forget to vote on our Ask a Vet question. We're going to leave that up for a little while. We'll revisit those results, I imagine. But remember, go back, or actually, do we want to take a look at those and see what they are right now? Cuddles, let's look at it. What have you got?
Oh, yeah. Well, we're sitting right now. We're at 59% for yes, it's not a problem. And 41% saying no, civilians should never salute. And we do, Clue, if you want to read, we had a couple of comments from the chat.
Okay.
I got it. Our first one is from Sergeant Devil Devlin, one of our Marines. In regard to saluting,
Hoorah!
The only time I see it as allowed is in respect to the flag, per the U.S. flag code. Jazaloo in chat, I personally know that I don't know how to salute correctly, so I don't think it's appropriate for me to do. Jazz, one of our civilian supporters. And then Uniform Gaming agreed with us, as we said earlier, that it is situational. Uniform, one of our veterans. So you can see even between our vets and our civilians, there's a little bit of like non-consensus here.
Sure.
So guys, make sure you do check out that straw poll. It will be live on our Twitter for the entire next week. We'll revisit this next week, and we'll see what you had to say. Leave your comments on Twitter as well. We'll be picking some of those out and reading them on our next week's show.
And don't forget, folks, tonight the Red Shirt Raiders are playing Fortnite Battle Royale. So hopefully you've gone to playfortnite.com, I think it is, or fortnitegame.com. Do you recall, Cuddles?
Google Fortnite without a
Fortnite.
Fortnite
Battle
N-I-T-E. Just Google it.
F-O-R-T. Yeah.
It's by Epic Games, and they did a great job. Guys, go have fun with that game, please.
Yes, go download that. Go play with our Red Shirt Raiders. If you want to get in touch with our Red Shirt Raiders, in the chat and down below in the Twitter feed or the Twitch page here is a link to the Discord channel. Go pop in, play some Fortnite Battle Royale with them, and have a great time. And folks, we will see you next week on the Red Shirt Report. Have a nice night.
Have a good one.